good evening. I'm Mary Husung Callan, President of the League of Women Voters of the Rochester metro area. Welcome to this debate focused on racial, economic, and environmental justice between candidates for the Congressional District 25 in the Democratic primary election of June 26th. Please make a note and mark your calendars. The League is pleased to join with the Rochester People's Climate Coalition and the Faith Community Alliance of Greater Rochester in co-sponsoring this debate. The League is nonpartisan. We believe that informed voters are the backbone of our democracy. We register citizens to vote, and if you're not registered, please stop at our table in the entryway. We study issues of public interest, share our findings publicly, and advocate for policy change. We also sponsor public forums such as this debate. Rochester People's Climate Coalition is an inclusive, nonpartisan network of organizations and individuals unified by their determination to identify and implement effective climate solutions. Their diverse supporters include business, faith, civic, labor, and environmental groups. Faith Community Alliance is a collaboration of religious leaders in the greater Rochester area. We request, of course, that all our guests respect our panel, our hosts here at the Mount Olivet Baptist Church, and of course, our own commitment to civil and respectful discourse. Our distinguished moderator this evening is Timothy Neeland, Professor and Chairperson of the History and Political Science Department and Director of the Center for Public History at Nazareth College. Without further ado, please welcome Tim Neeland, and let's begin.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get down to the reason you're here tonight. We're going to introduce the candidates. We're going to start with Ms. Robin Wilt. Ms. Wilt serves currently on the Brighton Town Board. She's been living in Brighton since 2003 and owns a real estate brokerage firm there. Formerly, she was a candidate for the 56th Senate District. Mr. Adam McFadden is a native of Rochester and is the longest-serving member of the City Council, where he is currently the Vice President. Mr. McFadden is also the Executive Director of Quad A Kids, a not-for-profit organization committed to breaking the cycle of childhood poverty in Rochester. And then finally, Rachel Barnhart, who is a Rochester native and a former broadcast journalist, founder of citizens watchdog group Rochester for All. Recently, Barnhart has been a candidate for the State Assembly and the mayor. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, the format is the following. This is a forum, not a debate. We will be asking prepared questions for each of the candidates, who will have initially 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond. Then the other candidates will have 1 minute for their own response. Candidates do not address each other, just the question. If a candidate were to say something personal about another candidate on the stage, it is at my discretion to give a 30-second rebuttal to the person being mentioned. In this candidate forum, we'll be tackling the grave issues surrounding our regions of racial, economic, and environmental justice. We're going to begin by allowing each candidate, in turn, a 1 minute opening statement. We'll begin with Ms. Wilt.
Good evening, folks. Thanks so much for being here tonight. My name is Robin Wilt, and I'm a member of the Brighton Town Board. But I am not your typical politician. I didn't come up through the political patronage system, so I may not look or act or sound like the other candidates in this race, because my experience for this position involves challenging the status quo on behalf of the people who need us the most. I'm an activist who speaks truth to power. I'm also the mother of 3 black sons. And ever since my youngest son was old enough to walk, my family has been engaged in rallies and civic actions in order to convince our representatives to listen to I'm sorry, that's distracting. Listen to the concerns of the people whom they represent. My reason that I'm running for office is that it's for all of you. I spent the last decade and a half promoting social, economic, and environmental justice. And now I think it's time that we have representation in Washington that eschew the politics as usual, the political horse trading, the status quo. And so that's why I hope that you'll support me for Congress.
Mr. McFadden.
Good evening. I'm Adam McFadden. Welcome to the South District. This is the district I actually represent. I'd like to bring greetings since we're sitting in church from Genesee Baptist Church and recognize our relationship with this church. I was actually baptized by Reverend Highgrave at Genesee Baptist Church, who's sitting here in the front row. But I'm here tonight as a candidate for Congress. I was born in this district, raised in this district, I lived in this district, and I want to continue the progressive work that I've accomplished at the Rochester City Council. I have passed the most progressive legislation to date at the Rochester City Council, the ban the box legislation, and the source of income discrimination legislation. I also am currently raising 3 daughters, have a background in accounting, where I served as a financial analyst for fleet investment operations, a controller for Sophie Tech, and now executive director for Quad A for Kids. I'm asking you to support my candidacy because I have a real background of results. I'm not just an advocate who talks, I'm an advocate that works. Thank you.
I'm Rachel Barnhart. I grew up in the city. I went to John Marshall High School and Cornell University. As a journalist, I've spent the last 20 years fighting for facts, truth, transparency, and accountability, things that are under attack right now. I also spent 20 years asking elected officials and business leaders some very tough questions and saying things I didn't want to hear. But you know what? They still respected my work and took my phone calls. I've knocked on 2,000 doors plus so far in this campaign. We need a representative who will do that hard work and who's willing to go to your backyards, your living rooms, and your front porches. Who's willing to listen to you, and not just to donors and political allies. We're all Democrats in this race, and you may not find a huge difference between us when it comes to the big issues. So tonight I'm asking you to listen to our approach, our policy knowledge, and the type of representative you want. And I hope you want a fighter, and I hope to earn your support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The first questions refer to your background or your experience. So I'm going to ask the first question of Ms. Wilt, but of course then everyone else will get a chance at this as well. You're all Democrats. Where do you differ from your opponent on the issues?
From our multiple opponents?
From multiple opponents, yeah.
Well, definitely my background is that of an activist, speaking truth to power, but I'm also an activist elected. And in my short time on the Brighton Town Board, I've been responsible for some of the most progressive and border-leading resolutions that the town has passed in decades. Brighton right now is the only town that has passed a community choice aggregation law. That is an enabling legislation which allows us to pool our collective purchasing resources as residents so we can source our energy more sustainably and also at reduced rates. And I also formed the IDEA, the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Committee on the Brighton Town Board, and that is something that, even though we have a strong commitment to diversity, was lacking in terms of what we would do in terms of policy and other types of best practices. So that's just a few things that I've done since being on the Brighton Town Board.
Excellent. Mr. McFadden?
For me personally, we've done a ton of resolutions at City Hall, so I won't go into that, but I will go into the things that I've done nationally. Many of you are familiar with My Brother's Keepers initiative by President Obama. While I was part of 14 people that helped to write it with the National Policy Alliance. Had an office in Washington, D.C. for 2 years as the president of the National Black Caucus, and I'm currently the chair of their foundation. I have real history in Washington, D.C., because I was there lobbying on not only our behalf in the city, but on behalf of African Americans all over the country. When I go to D.C., I don't need a roadmap. I know Washington, I know the Capitol building, I know the players, and if you send me there, I can continue the work that I've been doing.
You know, going to John Marshall High School, witnessing poverty close up, witnessing educational inequality shaped my views on social justice, and it's one of the reasons I became a journalist. I wanted to use the power of the pen to hold elected officials accountable, hold our leaders accountable for why things are the way they are. And I was constantly asking why, and I believe I had an impact. Journalism is about forging relationships. It's about building trust. It's about making sure citizens are informed and engaged in their community. That is work that I hope to continue as your representative. It's building those relationships, being a strong communicator, and being an advocate, and giving a voice to the voiceless.